Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast. For today, we're going over UFC Vegas 70, Krylov versus Spann. First things first, make sure you give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, give a follow over on Twitter, over on Instagram, over on TikTok, wherever there's social media, there is the Stats and Stacks podcast. And like the rest of the year thus far, the locks are looking great. Hit another 2 locks last week. Underdogs coming through. Both underdogs came through last week. Totals not so hot. Kind of struggling in that area this year, but it is what it is. As long as those locks hit to guarantee your money, and then as long as the underdogs hit and just kind of push it up a little more and give you some bonus cash, that's what it's all about. But all in all, I think this card is good. A lot of people are talking trash about this fight card. For true diehard MMA fans, it's a decent card. Not a lot of big names, but a lot of fun fights. And I know, like a few weeks ago, we said there were no names, but there's gonna be a ton of finishes, and there were. Last week, it's gonna be a great main event. The rest of it's gonna struggle a little bit, but at least you get some recognition from stuff. That's exactly how it played out. We thought last week would be boring. It wasn't the best card, and the main event lived up to the hype. So this week, I'm saying it again. It's going to be a pretty even keel event. Not going to be overly exciting, but it's not going to be as boring as last week. It'll be perfectly fine and some pretty fun fights along the way. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I mean, the way they're starting the fight card is with a really fun fight. We have Jose Johnson. I'm only pull it up in full here. We have Jose Johnson as a plus 110 dog going up against Garrett Armfield as a minus 130 favorite. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is plus 140. Under 2.5 at minus 175. Let's start with Garrett Armfield, because last week, Evan Elder, I said, I want to bet this kid. I made a mental note to bet this kid later. I made the same mental note about Garrett Armfield. He's a pretty good striker. He's 26 years old. I would say he's predominantly a striker. His losses are good, man. He's 8-3, but when you look at the guys he's lost to, David Onama, killer. Ronnie Lawrence, killer. And that's the thing. He's fighting Onama on short notice up at 145. He's back at his natural weight class. This is literally Evan Elder all over again. He's even at Kill Cliff FC, which is exactly where Evan Elder is. This is literally the same thing all over again. I also love people that come out of CFFC. That is my favorite regional scene for people to come out of, besides I'm one. And he's an alum there. He had a few fights there. All in all, he has good takedown defense. He's predominantly a striker, which is odd because he looks like a wrestler. He's short, stocky. You would think he's predominantly a wrestler, but he's a striker, and he's a pretty good one at that. He's pretty well versed. They always are coming out of Kill Cliff FC. It's one of the best camps, and I like this kid a ton. I think he has a ton of potential. On the flip side, Jose is an interesting one. He's one of these guys that you'll never bet on, but you're scared to bet against because he's a comeback king, man. He has a lot of come from behind wins. I mean, the Mo Miller fight, he was losing for a little in the first round until he came back and won in the second. This guy's striking is pretty good, to be honest. He hits decently hard for a really skinny guy in the weight class. He hits pretty hard. Like, he hurts people. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here, which is a little concerning. I don't like his tall man defense. He does just kind of rely on his length a lot of times to get out of trouble. His cardio seems okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just average. He is a Dana White Contender Series alum. And yes, people love fading the Contender Series fighters, but when they're favorites, this guy is an underdog coming in, and he was an underdog in the Contender Series. Vegas doesn't believe in Jose Johnson. And I mean, I get it. He's also a little chinny. I mean, Mana Martinez knocked him out pretty early. I guess he's not that chinny. He's really not that chinny at all. He has a lot of submission losses, so his ground game's a little concerning. But then again, he tapped out Mo Miller with a triangle, so he's a weird fighter, man. I don't really know what to think of Jose Johnson, to be quite frank with you. Again, I know I'm not going to bet on him, but he scares me a little to bet against. But I got to ride with what I saw previously. Per fight tape, I'm going to take Armfield as the better fighter here. Vegas agrees with that, so that's what we're going to roll with. The pick is going to be Garrett Armfield. The bet is going to end up being Garrett Armfield. Then the next fight of the night is more sketchiness, to be honest. Last week we started with 2 locks, and we knew he would have a good or a bad night contingent on how the first few fights went. It's going to be the complete opposite here. The first few are the ones that you need to stay away from. We have Eileen Perez as a plus 125 dog going up against Haley Cohen at minus 145. The over under set at 2.5, over 2.5 minus 195, under 2.5 at plus 160. Let's start with Haley. She's, again, a Dana White Contender Series alum. You're going to hear that a lot. There's a lot of first time debuting Contender Series fighters on this card. She's fought a good promotion Contender Series, Invicta, LFA. Those are the three big ones for women's MMA. And then, of course, Bellator and UFC. But on a regional standpoint, can't get better than where she was fighting. The girls she was fighting weren't the greatest, but again, you're going to run into that with women's MMA. You fight whoever you can get a hold of. Her Contender Series fight scared me because she has a little bit of a jujitsu issue. She's not the greatest on the ground. She's been talking about how much she's been drilling it and working on it, and she was in some deep trouble in that Contender Series fight. She almost lost that fight. Um, I don't know, man. I mean, her striking's decent, but she has really low volume. Um, I don't like her takedown. She will try to bully you. She's a very strong physical girl, but she does a lot of head and arms, and I don't like that. That's like the worst thing you can do in MMA is that head and arm throw because you're essentially giving up your back as you get that takedown. So I don't know, man. I don't really know what she's good at. I know she's bad at jujitsu. Her striking is at least a little to be desired, and her wrestling, she uses all the worst wrestling moves you can, and she just tries to bully you. So she's essentially trying to just be a size bully. And that's kind of concerning because she's fighting Aline Perez, who is also a size bully. She's not very good either. Her striking, I would say, is the same. It's decent. It's not terrible, but it's not that great. Her power is good. She hits like an absolute truck. MMA Masters is a pretty decent gym. I don't know who she's training with, female wise, but it's a pretty decent gym. My problem with her is we have no idea about her cardio because when you look at her, she's a finisher. Her loss in the UFC, she lost in the second round. So who knows if it was because of gas, but Stephanie Ager was kind of able to control her. Her other loss is a DQ. She didn't actually lose. She was fought someone who Vidal is actually now in the UFC. So both losses are to UFC girls. But that one she didn't lose to Vidal. She actually got DQ'd. She was cheating, man. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. She threw illegal knees. She was eye poking, low blows. She was doing everything. Every rule you have, she broke until they just had to call the fight. But the rest of her fights are all, round one, round two. She has a few decisions to start her career. Her wrestling's not good. It's not good at all. Just like Haley, she just bullies you. And unlike head and arm chokes from Haley, she just kind of goes forward and tries to power double you. But it's weird because she's not on the legs, and she's not doing a hip toss. She's not on the hip. She just kind of, or on the body. She kind of goes for like, I don't know. She's like a bull in a china shop, and she literally just tries to run through you. She's gonna grab any piece of you she can and run through you. So I don't know, man. Both these girls are not very technically sound. Both these girls are unproven. Both these girls have not fought the best competition, and now they're fighting each other. And both these girls are size bullies. So they're basically the same thing. Only one of them has a plus 125 next to their name and has fought in the UFC already. So the pick is going to be Eileen. The bet's going to be Eileen. It's a scary proposition, though. Neither one of these girls are UFC caliber, in my opinion. Next fight of the night is another one that scares the hell out of me. I really, really, really like Nurul Aliyev. I wanted to lock him. The only issue is with him being a minus 175 favorite, he's fighting Rafael Alves, and Alves is one of those guys. He's like a Derek Lewis of lightweight. You don't bet against that guy because he can knock you out at any point. Over under set at 2.5, and it's a straight pick 'em. Minus 115 across the boards. The main reason I like Nurul Aliyev is because he's the eagle, is what they call him, the Tajik eagle, because he fights like Khabib. He doesn't get a lot of finishes, just like Khabib. He just pressure wrestles you the entire time. His striking is not the greatest, but he's 23, man. He's just a kid. He's going to improve. Aaron Blanchfield is 23. We saw how much her striking improved from one fight to the other. Like, these kids are going to constantly improve because they're nowhere near their prime. He's going to have a foreign reach advantage here, which is nice. He's going to have a cardio advantage here, which is nice. He's going to have a wrestling edge here, which is nice. My only problem with him It's the fact that it's his debut from the Contender Series and he's a young kid. I do not like betting really, really young Contender Series fighters in their debut. It does not seem to work out almost ever. But this kid reminds me, he calls himself the Tajik Eagle. He reminds me a lot more of Islam. Very low volume, hits decently hard, kind of strikes exactly like him. Honestly, kind of looks like him. This dude is a 23-year-old Islam Makhachev. That's exactly what he is. So what Islam was back then is what he is right now. And the kid's good. He's got all the tools in the world. My issue, again, it's his UFC debut. He's only 23 years old and he's fighting Rafael Alves, and this guy is frightening. If you remember this name, part of it is because he had the biggest weight miss in UFC history. The guy that missed it by like 12 pounds or something crazy like this. This is our buddy. But dude, he hits hard. This dude is a definition of power. And he has a 20-11 record, but I mean, so most of his losses were at the start of his career. He didn't really know what was happening. Look at all these losses here. Then he went on a nice little streak. He was at 145 at one point. No idea how he did that. Realized he can't make that anymore, so he moved up to 155. And they punished him by giving him Damir Uzmagulov. He missed by all that weight, so they gave him Damir. They're like, you know what? Damir is a tank. Why don't you fight that guy? And he rocked Damir. He hurt Damir badly in round one. But again, he's a little bit of a glass cannon. He will run through you, but he fades with all that jacked muscle and explosiveness. He can only let it go for so long. He ended up losing to Demir. Then he fought Mark Diakese and actually got a quick finish, man. Club and sub, not basically knocked him out and then choked him out with a guillotine. That's his favorite choke there. Then they gave him Drew Dober, and it was a fun, exciting fight. Yeah, Drew Dober hurt a few times. He was hurt a few times until he eventually succumbed to body shots in the third round because he gassed out. He had nothing left. This guy is he might be, in all honesty, the most explosive man in the UFC. The man is fast and he cracks. His jiu-jitsu is really, really good. His striking is really good. It's just he can only have it going for so long. So, in my eyes, I mean, he's the biggest issue. Again, I want to bet Aliev, but then I look at it, and Alves has a 60% takedown defense. Aliev doesn't like to strike. He prefers to wrestle, just like Islam, and he's going to pressure until he gets a takedown. I am petrified of this man's guillotine. Alves has a phenomenal guillotine. So as long as Aliev doesn't put his head into some trouble, I can see it. Could he rock Aliev and get him out that way? I can see both ways, man. That's why I don't want to bet against Alves, but I know the right pick is Aliev, and mainly because Alves has a 60% takedown defense and he's hittable on the feet. So as long as Aliev, or I was trying to say his first name to not get confused, as long as Aliev stays away from Raphael's power to start the first round, he'll be perfectly fine. So I feel like I'm talking in circles. It's talent versus explosion. Give me the talent, even though it's young. Pick is going to be Aliev. Bet's going to be Aliev, but please, buyer beware. Next fight of the night is one I feel really odd about. We have Carl Deaton the third as a plus 410 dog going up against Joe Selecki at minus 520. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 is minus 155. Under 1.5 at plus 125. Let's start with Joe because I think Joe sucks, man. I think Joe's kind of overrated, to be quite frank with you. He's gonna have a 3.5 inch reach advantage here, which is super nice. He'll need that because his striking's not that good. You see it improving, you see it getting better. But I mean, it's just he's 29 years old. It can improve still a little bit, but he needs that part of his game to improve. Why? Because he's a little chinny. This guy, he's one of these guys where if he gets hit at the right spot, he goes out quick. We saw him get lose a split to Jared Gordon, but Jared Gordon doesn't have any power. I bet Jared Gordon that night. I actually thought that Joe Selecki won, to be honest with you, but it is what it is. Nicholas Mata beat the shit out of him. And then his other loss, he got dropped a few times over in CFFC. I like CFFC. Again, I like to support those guys. And Joe has some of the best jiu-jitsu in this weight class. Like, he is phenomenal on the ground at 155. He's just really slow and chinny and not a good striker. So you think, well, it might just come down to his wrestling. Can he wrestle since he needs it down to the ground? The answer is yes. It's not the greatest wrestling I've ever seen in the UFC, but it's not terrible. It'll suffice. But he does have to at least pose some sort of threat on the feet so that his takedowns can work. And if you match him up with the right person, like a Austin Hubbard or a Alex De Silva, he's able to do so. A Jim Miller. If there's not a lot of firepower coming back, he's fine. Well, De Silva had some firepower, and he rocked him. He dropped him down to the ground, but he fouled him down there. As long as you don't have a ton of firepower coming back, he seems to be fine. And then he can just get the takedown and he can just smother you. He can tap you out or just throw in that body triangle and just sit there all day. On the flip side, we have Carl Deaton, who's taking this fight on short notice. I got a bet against this guy just because of his haircut. You can't really see it from here, but he's got a wild kind of Charles Johnson thing going on here. And they're ironically both on this card. He's 33 making his UFC debut. That's a red flag. His jiu-jitsu's all right. He's just an overall generalist. His wrestling's okay. His striking's okay. He's over at ATT, so he's at a good camp, which is nice. But all in all, I'm just not overly impressed with this guy. He's the definition of generalist. He's not bad anywhere, but he's not necessarily good anywhere. And honestly, looking at his record, I mean, the few times he fought someone that were almost UFC caliber, I mean, Vince Murdoch was able to beat him. That's not a good look, especially because Vince isn't even a lightweight. And then you have Alejandro Flores. I mean, he lost a split there. He beat Justin James, which is nice, but that's probably his best win. Looking at his record, I truly believe Justin James is his best record. He's beat some suspect people, 5-26, 9-4, 16-9. They're always like walking that fine line, 7-9, 1-0, 4-8. These aren't the best guys in the world. Oh God. Yeah. So I don't know, man. He's just a generalist. He's taking it on short notice, and I don't think he's UFC caliber. So I think the line is off. I don't think Joe Solecki should be a minus 520 favorite. I can't trust this man's chin. I can't trust his striking. If Joe can't get it to the ground, he's in some serious trouble. But I do think he gets it there eventually. So the pick is gonna be Joe. The bet, I don't hit the over. Deaton's jiu-jitsu, it's not terrible. He's been tapped before, but just once. So, and that was a long time ago. That was back in 2014. He's a veteran of the game. He's at ATT. Joe's not going to knock him out. So at that juncture, I'm going to take the over there at 1.5. I don't hate it at minus 155. Next fight of the night is just a weird one. It's a fun fight, but I don't know which way to go, man. We have Ode Osborne at plus 150 going up against Charles Johnson at minus 175. Over 2.5 minus 110, under 2.5 minus 120, basically a straight pick 'em. We are going to start with Ode here. Ode. If I hear him say that, I'm instantly betting Charles Johnson because I could not stand that his last fight. The little chant that he tried to get going his last two, I can't stand it. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here, which is nice. His striking's good. Wrestling, all right. Jiu-jitsu, it's all right. He is a little hittable, though. I'm not a fan of that, especially because he can be a little chinny. I mean, when you look at this dude, he has what? He has how many career losses? Not a lot. Okay, so he's 11-4, and he's been knocked out his last two losses. Like Manel Kopp is a killer. Don't get me wrong. That no shame there. He got choked out by Brian Kelleher. Tyson Nam is 40 years old, and he knocked him out. So that's kind of sketchy. I read somewhere that Ode's average fight time is like 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So he usually doesn't make it out of the first round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's had 6 UFC fights, 7 if you include the Contender Series, and it's still averaging the not making out the first. So that's why that over under is sitting at 2.5. Being kind of, I'm eyeing it a little bit. He has decent power. But the guys he's knocking out aren't exactly UFC caliber. I mean, Adeshev and Jerome Rivera, like these aren't the greatest fighters in the world. And when he does fight someone decent, he's either getting knocked out or going all the way. Like CJ Vergara went a whole distance, and he has no cardio. So if you have no chin and no cardio, that does concern me. On the flip side, that is all Charles Johnson has is a great chin and great cardio. His striking's okay, it's good. His wrestling's okay. I know it's going to show a low takedown defense, but that's because he got taken down 12 times by Makayev. His jiu-jitsu's fine. It's not terrible. His schedule, I mean, he's fought Brandon Royval, Zumagulov, Jimmy Flick. He's fought Carlos Moda. These are pretty decent names, to be 100% honest with you. He fought some Makayev, Michael Graves. Like, he's fought some pretty decent guys. All in all, he loves to work the body, and I love that with him fighting Ode Osborne, someone that has cardio issues. If you're going to work their body, it's definitely going to catch my eye. He just doesn't have a lot of power. So Ode's susceptible to getting knocked out and gassing out. So the body shots are going to definitely help with the gas tank. Is he going to just one shot Ode? Probably not. He doesn't have the power to do so. So I don't hate the over. I think this fight is going to be a lot closer than some people think. I think this could almost honestly be a pick 'em. Ode does give a lot of volume as well. It's going to be a very close fight on the feet. I definitely think Charles Johnson's going to win the third. I think that Ode is going to win the first, and then we're going to come down to that second. Who wins the second round? I'll give it to Charles, even if maybe he'll get a 10-8 or a finish in the third. So the pick is going to be Charles Johnson. The bet would be probably the over 2.5, to be 100% honest with you. I think Charles wins, and he's not going to finish Ode, so I'll take the over there. Next fight of the night makes me absolutely sick because I'm going to have to root for a man to twerk. We have Jordan Levitt at minus 105 going up against Victor Martinez at minus 115. Over 2.5 is plus 120. Under 2.5 at minus 150. Let's just go ahead and start with the aforementioned Jordan Levitt. He is really good jiu-jitsu. He's very, very good on the ground. He's freakishly strong. His wrestling's okay. It's not great by any means, but it's okay. It's decent. He shoots a pretty decent double leg. Super low volume, no striking whatsoever. It's almost like he doesn't know how to throw a punch. Even the first thing I think about is his win over Trey Ogden. He didn't even throw. He threw like 2 punches. He just leg kicked him the entire time. His cardio is bad. He gasses out every single fight. His last fight, though, he looked fine against Patty. He eventually got caught in a submission, but Patty is a wizard on the ground. I think Jordan's great on the ground, too. He handled him. He beat Patty round 1. And I'll tell you what, Victor is nowhere near Patty's level. I don't think Patty's good. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I think Patty is ass, and he's about to get exposed, especially if he fights Drew Dober, like it's being rumored. But it was just whose jiu-jitsu is better, basically, is what that came down to. Because Patty has the better striking. Jordan has no striking. That's why. Patty striking is bad. Jordan has no striking whatsoever. On the flip side, Victor, he can strike. He's an okay striker. His jiu-jitsu, he's a black belt. On paper, he's a black belt credential. I mean, even his losses, he has 4 losses. He's lost to UFC caliber guys. Eric Gonzalez is in the UFC. Luke Flores was in the UFC. Like, these are decent losses there. They're not terrible, but it seems as if he beats everyone that's not UFC caliber. And as soon as he runs into one, even the bottom of the barrel, that's kind of where he's going to be sitting around. Don't get me wrong. Jordan is bottom of the barrel. Victor will definitely have a lot more output than Jordan on the feet. It just comes down to the wrestling, to be honest with you. Victor is going to want to stand and bang. Jordan's going to want to take him down and lay and pray or submit him. I don't know, man. His cardio is definitely better too. I can see this fight, and it's a very closely lined fight. But at the end of the day, if you have a striker versus a grappler, I'm always going to take the grappler. And again, on paper, Victor Martinez is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so maybe he can stay safe on the ground. So at that point, I'm just kind of eyeing this over here, being plus money, plus 120. If Jordan can get the fight down, he may not be able to submit him, and I'll just watch that time tick away. And if you're going to be plus money on the over, that's the way I'm going. So the pick is going to be Jordan. The bet is going to be the over 2.5 at plus 120. Next fight of the night. It gets even greasier, man. We got Jasmine Jasdavicius at plus 110 going up against Gabriela Fernandez at minus 130. Over 2.5, minus 265. Under 2.5 at plus 210. Let's start with Jasmine. Jasmine sucks. Jasmine's not very good. She started her UFC career, her MMA career, very, very late in life. Her striking isn't very good. It's really not. She has a jab. That's about it. She loves to press her forward, which is nice and looks very good for the judges. And her wrestling. That's what she wants to do. She wants to go out, take you down, and ground and pound. That's all she wants to do. Her cardio, not the greatest. Her head movement, non-existent. She's pretty hittable on the feet. So all she wants to do is pressure you, get the takedown, and ground and pound. That's all she can do. It's very robotic striking. The problem is she ran into Natalia Silva, and she got a little exposed, but I also just think Silva's a beast. I love Natalia Silva. I think she's so good. But at the end of the day, it was a bad style matchup for her. And honestly, Jasmine's just a little bit of a size bully. She's very, very big for the weight class. She just wants to bully you and take you down. Very much like Eileen Perez and Haley Cowan earlier. She just wants to bull over. There's not a lot of technique, just sheer strength and power because she's a big girl. On the flip side, she's going to fight someone that's pretty decently sized herself. Gabriella is not a little 125 pounder at all. I mean, her striking is definitely better. It's pretty good. Throws a lot of body kicks. It's pretty low volume from the few fights I saw. She's also taking this fight on short notice. I'm not the biggest fan of that. She circles a ton. She just circles body kick. Like that's all she's doing. Her cardio, I'm not too sure about. Looking at her record, she has a lot of finishes, a lot of third round finish, decision win, which looks nice. But yeah, it's a lot of just circling and body kicks. That's about all I saw. And her last fight, she got a guillotine finish. Super nice to get, especially in LFA. Nice place to get that. But she hurt the girl. The girl shot in. She grabbed that guillotine, and she almost didn't get it. Like it was kind of she was playing with this guillotine for like 2 minutes and blew her arms out and just happened to get the tap at the end. If she did not get that finish, she would have had nothing left in a 5-round fight. And that's concerning. That shows IQ. After a while, you usually just bail on the choke. I didn't like that she persisted. Like, I understand if it was tight, but the girl basically got out of it and then she put her right back in it. If the other girl wasn't bad and got out, she would have had blown arms and then she probably would have got her ass whooped for the last 3 rounds. So her fight IQ scares me. Her volume scares me, but Jasmine needs a takedown. It comes down to Fernandez takedown defense, and I simply don't have an answer. I have no idea. I really don't know. So at that point, I'm just going to take again plus money. I probably need to stay away from this fight. I don't trust the over under either, but they both might have cardio issues, and I have no idea about Gabriella's wrestling. So the pick is going to be Jasmine. The bet is going to be Jasmine just because she has experience, man. Give me the girl with UFC experience. All right, next fight of the night. It's the Dana White Contender Series fate again. Another debut. We have the best nickname in the business, Eric Ghost Pepper Gonzalez, going at plus 160, going up against Trevor Peek at minus 190. Over under set at another 1.5. They expect violence this card. Over 1.5 plus 140, under 1.5 at minus 175. Most of that is because of honestly both men. Eric Gonzalez is a madman out there. He's a car crash waiting to happen. Most of his fights end pretty early, a lot of round ones, round twos. He did have a little run of decisions in here, which is interesting. He hits decently hard. He's not like one of these guys with ungodly power, but it's not bad. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here, which is super nice. And his striking is good. Don't get me wrong. He's over there at Combate. They usually generate a lot of good strikers. And he's no different. He's a pretty good striker. His wins, a little questionable. Not a lot of 5-3 and 6-5 and 14-7 and 6-3. Like they're not the worst wins. They're not the greatest. Losses. Hermata Bodene used to be in the UFC, Jim Miller in the UFC, Terrence McKinney in the UFC, Rafa Garcia in the UFC, Danny Ramirez in the UFC. Like he's only losing the UFC caliber guys. But the guys he's beating aren't UFC caliber. So that's the issue with him. He is literally bottom barrel UFC. He's good enough. Don't get me wrong. I think he is good enough to be a UFC fighter, but I don't think he's good enough to stay in the UFC. And right now, this is his third chance. He knows it's win or go home. So we'll see what he's about. On the flip side, we have Trevor Peek, my boy, gave us a follow over on and a retweet the Stats and Stacks podcast. So we support Trevor Peek. We love Trevor Peek, and he's a fun fighting style, man. He's 7-0. And when you go over his record, he's never gone to his decision. All of his wins are by finish, and all of his wins are by knockout. So the guy is an absolute tank. It's extremely hard. Most of them in round one. He had two fights go into five first round finishes, and then two in the second round. All in all, the problem with him is that he's a little hittable, and his takedown defense isn't that good. He has a very good get up game. If you take him down, he's popping right back up. He's grabbing your wrist. He's getting his hips away. He's getting away from you, and then he's going to go right back to what he was doing on the feet. But you can't take him down. You can't hold him, but you can get him down there pretty easily. He's coming off the Dana White Contender Series, and he's the favorite. This is literally the fade angle, so it's very very concerning. His cardio, we don't fully know. He had the better cardio in his Contender Series fight where he almost died against Malik Lewis. Like Malik Lewis had him rocked. Like they could have honestly stopped the fight, to be honest with you, but he did just enough right in the right seconds for the ref not to step in. And then the guy gassed himself out, beating his ass, and then he wanted it more. Trevor Peek just had a desire to win that night, and although he was tired, the other guy was so tired. Malik was gassed from throwing everything he had at Trevor to where Trevor finished him in the second round. He went in like a man possessed and got the job done. Dana was impressed. I was impressed. I had a bet on Trevor that night. Trevor Peek is the man. But I'm scared for this matchup. This has Dana White Contender Series fade written all over it. And honestly, you just have to trust the process. You can't not just because you want someone to win doesn't mean they're going to win. I will support Trevor Peek. I will be a Trevor Peek fan for the rest of my life. I just don't want to put money on him on this fight. So the pick is actually going to be Eric Gonzalez. And the bet is going to be Eric Gonzalez just based on the pick is Trevor Peek, but the bet would be the dog and Eric Gonzalez. I think this is not lined correctly. I think this should be a straight pick 'em. So if I plus 160 on something that should be a pick 'em, I'm going to take that. And the over and 1.5. Stay away from that. Just I would go Eric Gonzalez. Next fight of the night, we have another banger. This fight is fun. It sucks because they're both Canadian, and everyone's talking about how there's no good Canadian fighters. They have a few on the roster, and they have to fight each other. That kind of sucks, but it's going to be a fucking blast, man. Mike Mallet at minus 225 going up against Johan Lioness at plus 190. Over under set at 1.5 again. Straight pick 'em. Over 1.5, under 1.5. Both lines at minus 115. Let's start with Mike. If everyone remembers Mike, he's the one that wanted to donate his fight of the night bonus over to like a charity or a friend or something that was suffering, and everyone kind of liked the moment. It was a great after fight speech. He was over at Team Alpha Male for a while as their jiu-jitsu coach. The man's phenomenal on the ground. His striking also very good. He's a very good striker, hits extremely hard. Wrestling, takedown defense leaves a little to be desired. His offensive wrestling, it's all right. It's not the greatest, but it's kind of like my biggest comparison is probably like Anthony Pettis as to where someone's really good on the feet, but they're really good on the ground, so it doesn't matter if they can wrestle because they're down to fight wherever it goes. But he's a round one finisher, man. When you look at his record, he's 9-1. All of his fights are going in the first round. Yeah, every single one of them, every single one of his wins, and then the first round. His loss, Hakeem Dawodu, also in the first round. Here's my concern. His cardio, it looked like it started to gas, and it was only the first round. So that's very concerning. It was back in 2014, but he did get KO'd by Hakeem Dawodu, who finishes nobody. So he might be a tad bit tinny, might be a little bit of a gas cannon, might be a little bit of a glass cannon, and that's not good. You got to have cardio and you got to have a chin if you're going to go to brawl and go to war like that. So he has the power to back it up. His chin, it's in question. I can't say it looked more like it was due to exhaustion, but his chin is in question. You want to talk about people that have a ton of power and get tired quickly? His opponent, man, Johan Lioness, he's extremely low volume because his cardio is so bad. Like he is notorious for having bad cardio. His takedown defense is good, so Mike Malot's going to have some trouble taking him down. Johan's very hittable. He gets hit a shit ton. A lot of that is because he gasses out and then you just light him up on the feet. But Johan's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here, and this dude craps. If Mike has a chin issue, it's going to be found by Johan. Johan is a good striker, and he hits extremely hard. It's just He barely throws anything because he has no volume. His last win was against Darian Weeks, and I have no idea how he won that fight. He threw like 14 significant strikes. Like he hardly threw anything. And he himself talks about how bad his cardio is. So it's concerning when the fighter says they have bad cardio. That's not a good look. He said, "Oh, just wait till you see my cardio now. I've been working on it." And he looked just as tired in the Darian Weeks fight. Like he was awful. So I don't know, man. You have two guys that get all of their wins in the first round. Johan does have a decision win, though. That's nice. He has two. But then round one, round one, round one, round one, round two, round one, round two loss. So yeah, most of he has two decision wins, and all the rest are first round knockout. Mike Malott, all his wins first round knockout, hence the 1.5 being minus 115. So you have a gasser going against a gasser. Both have a ton of power. Flip a coin. But Johan is a plus 190 dog. Again, if this thing hits the ground, if Mike goes out and wrestles and takes him down, he can get the finish. But Johan's takedown defense isn't bad. It could definitely get worse as the fight progresses in the second and third round. But does Mike have the cardio for that? I have no fucking clue. So honestly, the pick is going to be Mike. He has more ways to win. He can knock him out. He can tap him out. He can grind him out. But we just don't know about that cardio. So the pick is Mike, but the bet is going to be Johan. And honestly, I'm going to take a look at the odds. If Johan by KO is anywhere in the vicinity of like plus 300, I'm going to take that over just the money line. But I'm also going to look at that round one KO. I'm sure it's a decent value with him being a plus 200 dog already. So the pick is Mike, the bet is Johan, and take a look at that round and that knockout prop. If you get a juicy number, you jump on that. Then the next fight of the night, honestly, might be the one I'm most excited about. We have Tatiana Suarez, the return of the queen, 8-0, going up as a minus 750 favorite, going up against Montana De La Rosa at plus 550. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 160. Under 2.5 at plus 130. Dude, Tatiana's so good. She's 32 years old now, which sounds weird, but that's because we haven't seen her in 3 years, man. She is the most dominant women's wrestler we've ever seen. People are all hype about Erin Blanchfield right now, and I am myself. I love Erin Blanchfield. This is the original Erin Blanchfield. This girl can wrestle her ass off. She fought Carla Esparza and mauled the wrestler. She fought Nina Nunez, just killed her. So Alexa Grasso is about to fight for the title in a few weeks. She tapped out Alexa Grasso in the first round. Like she has very good wins on her record, and she just looks dominant in every single fight. JJ Aldridge aged well. Like all in all, she's just an absolute tank. Her striking's all right. That's not the greatest. It's okay. It's sufficient, but her wrestling and her jiu-jitsu is nuts. So you're saying, how is she not champ? She was ranked 5 at one point, I want to say, in the weight class. The issue with her is her injuries, man. She had torn ACLs, she had hip problems, she had neck problems, and she just could not stay healthy. She is the Dom Cruz of our era. Like she literally is Dom Cruz 2.0. Great wrestling, okay striking, good cardio, dominant, can't stay healthy, never fights. And then they found cancer, man. This woman had to overcome cancer, all the power to her. It's a blessing that she had one of those neck injuries. Like apparently during one of her like scopes looking at her neck when she was having issues, they noticed a little cancerous mark on her neck as well. So they were able to catch the cancer. If she wasn't injury prone, who knows that the cancer would have spread. So everything happens for a reason. It does suck that we haven't seen her in almost 4 years, but she's alive. So I'll definitely take that. It's been, man, I think it's been over 4 years. Jesus. Her last win was in 2019. Oh my God. So yeah, man, she's gonna drop back down to 115. That's what she wants to do, but she wants her first return fight to be at 125 because you have to watch her weight cuts a little. She does struggle with it. She's a big girl there. But yeah, good striking or okay striking, great wrestling, best wrestling. And jiu-jitsu is pretty decent. On the flip side, Montana De La Rosa, someone that's improving, man. I like Montana. She wins me a lot of money. I can kind of read her like a book. I called the knockout over Ariana Lipsky. I called that exactly how it would happen. I called the Macy Barber loss. I chose Macy there because she kind of Montana wants to wrestle you. That's what she wants to do. She wants to get the takedown and she wants to get a ground and pound or a submission win. That's what she wants to do. Her striking, she was never known for, but it's getting better, man. I see constant improvement in her. Elevation is a great fight team. She's only 28 years old and she's been in the UFC, it feels like forever. She's been in the UFC since 2017. So she's 28. She was 23 when she came into the UFC. So we saw her evolve constantly. The only thing is when she fights someone good, when she fights Andrea Lee, when she fights Viviana Araujo, when she fights Macy Barber, she gets killed. When she fights the Mara Borellas and the Ariana Lipskis of the world, she gets the win. The Rachel Ostovich, she gets the win. So she kills the bums, she loses to the studs. And let me tell you, Tatiana is an absolute freak of nature. Again, haven't seen her in 4 years. So who knows if she's going to come back the same? We don't know what version we're getting. And I'm using this as a precursor to the John Jones fight. We haven't seen him in 3 years. So let's see what we're going to get in Tatiana. If she comes out and kills it, I'm even more confident in John Jones the following week. So Montana's pretty durable, and she's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage when it comes to the striking. So a lot of people like Tatiana inside the distance. I don't hate the over 2.5. We haven't seen her in 4 years. I don't know if she just goes out there and mauls her. It may go the distance, and it may not be bad for Tatiana to go all 15, to be honest with you. So the pick is going to be Suarez, obviously. The bet, you can't touch 750. There's no value there. But I might take a poke at the over 2.5. I don't hate it at minus 160. I don't think those are bad odds at all. And then the next fight of the night is one that kind of perplexes me and scares me a little. We have Augustus Sakai as a minus 125 favorite going up against Dante Mays at plus 105. Over under set at 1.5 again. Over 1.5 is minus 165. Under 1.5 at plus 135. Let's start with Sakai because Sakai is on a bit of a skid. He is 0-4 in his last 4 fights. He has not won a fight since 2020, so that's a little concerning. It's been 3 years. But here's the deal. He fought Alistair Overeem, and he beat the shit out of Overeem, but then he got overly tired. Overeem pulled a veteran rope-a-dope, and then he got the job done in a main event. Jairzinho Rosenstrike is the hardest hitter, the second hardest hitter right now in the UFC. So if you get knocked out by that guy, shit happens. And he got caught with 1 second left in the first round. In a fight that he was kind of winning on the feet, to be honest with you. And then the next fight, a fight that was very close against Taito Ivasa, and then he got clipped and he got put out in the second round. And we learned Taito Ivasa hits like a truck. Then he fought Sergey Spivak, and we just learned Sergey Spivak is like 2 fights away from fighting for a title. Sergey Spivak is real. So yes, he's 0-4 in his last 4 fights, but he literally fought all title challengers and people that are in the top 10. So, I mean, no shame there. On the flip side, we have I mean, honestly, sticking with Augusto, we didn't even go over what he does. He has good striking. His wrestling, 54%. But let's be real, Spivak took him down 6 times. That's where all of it came from. He's really susceptible to trip takedowns for whatever reason. But that's not what Dontel Mage does. Augusto does slow down in fights. His cardio leaves a little to be desired. But all in all, this should be a striking ordeal because Dontel Mays is predominantly a striker. Dontel's going to have a 5.5-inch reach advantage, which is nice for him. His striking's okay, but it's not that great, man. He's not really beating UFC caliber guys. He's hittable himself, so that's not good going up against Augusto. He's found wrestling. That's how he's won his last few fights. He won his fight against Josh Parisian through wrestling. He won his fight against Rocky Martinez through wrestling. But Josh Parisian cut, Rocky Martinez cut. Yeah, he hasn't beat anyone that's still currently in the UFC. He fought Cyril Gane. I don't know why they sacrificed him. Of course, he lost. And then he lost to Rogerio Nascimento. Nascimento's not that good. So he got choked out. His jiu-jitsu is a little questionable. His wins, I mean, 3-2, 6-2. He beat Mitchell Seep, who's not good. He beat Harry Huntsucker, who's not good. And again, Rocky Martinez and Josh Parisian. He doesn't have good wins. Literally. So I don't know. He's a striker turned wrestler because he wasn't winning in his striking exchanges. And it's going to come down to if Dontel Mays can get the takedown, good for him. Augusto's in trouble. But Dontel, all of his takedowns, they were all double legs. And Augusto, I watched a few of his fights. I watched all of the fights where he got taken down. I watched the Spivak fight. I watched the Alistair fight. He gets tripped all the fucking time. Not a lot of blast doubles. That he had decent takedown defense against Spivak's doubles. It was all the throws and the trips. And Dontel doesn't have that in his pocket. So the pick is going to be Augusto. It's just a style. It's a wrestling style. So the pick's going to be Augusto. The bet's going to be Sakai. Good value at minus 125, honestly. All right. And then that takes us to the co-main event of the evening. Another one I don't really know what to do with. We have Andre Muniz as a minus 205 favorite going up against Brendan Allen Allen at plus 175. Over under set at 1.5 again. They expect violence. Over 1.5 minus 135. Under 1.5 plus 105. This is tricky, man. I, in my heart of hearts, believe Andre Muniz is one of the biggest bust in the UFC. I think he is, or sorry, not bust, fraud. He's so fraudulent. He's not good. I'm telling you right now, his striking is ass. He has a nice little body kick. That's it. He has nothing else on the feet. He's gonna have a 3-inch reach advantage here, which is nice. His jiu-jitsu is world class. It might be the best jiu-jitsu in the UFC, period. Not just his weight class, in the UFC, period. Like Muniz is the real deal on the ground, but he has to wrestle to get it down there, and his wrestling's okay. He can shoot a pretty decent double and time it. That's all he has. He has no body locks. He has no singles. I saw him on a single leg a lot. He can't finish singles. He can only finish blast doubles. So that's the only way he can get it done. But once he gets it down there, he's good, man. He's very, very good on the ground. The issue is 0 striking, 0 chin. All 4 of his losses are by knockout. 0 cardio. The 2 most important things in the UFC are your cardio and your chin, and he has neither. That's very, very concerning. The best part of his game is jiu-jitsu, and don't get me wrong, although he's world class on the ground, Brendan Allen's a real black belt. Like, Allen is very, very good on the ground. The striking edge, 110% Allen. Allen is going to kill him on the feet. So Allen's over at Kill Cliff FC. He's looked great since he's moved over there from Rufus Sport. The biggest issue with Brendan, he's an okay striker. He's decent, but he's going to look phenomenal compared to Andre. His jiu-jitsu, great, but it's going to look worse compared to Andre, but I think it's enough to stay safe. The issue with Brendan Allen is that he has a 50% takedown defense. It's a little skewed because he fought Jacob Malkoun, who took him down at will, but I don't know, man. His Christoph Jocko took him down. God, I don't know. Kyle Dawkins took him down. His takedown defense isn't the greatest. It was bad before the 50% after the Malkoun fight. So on the feet, Allen kills him. On the ground, Muniz he's always able to get a submission, but will he? Allen is okay. Allen's good on the ground. And when it comes to the wrestling, Muniz only has 1 takedown he can get, and Allen struggles with takedowns. So I don't know, man. This fight is very, very close. It's going to come down to the wrestling again, and Allen will definitely have the cardio. So if Allen survives round 1, I probably will live bet him. But I need to see how easy that takedown is, to be honest with you. The pick is going to be Muniz. Hit at plus 175, and the last time I looked, the line was like plus 190 for Brendan Allen. If that keeps going up and we get more money, I got to go all in on Brendan Allen. So the pick is going to be Andre Muniz, but the bet is going to be Brendan Allen, and preferably, probably after like the first round. If that takedown wasn't easy, I don't know, man. That's the only way Muniz is still up, though. So you'll have to do it right away. So the pick is going to be Muniz. The bet's going to be Allen off the jump. And then that takes us to the main event. Again, if you haven't already, I don't know why you haven't, hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, tell your friends. Make sure you give a follow over on Twitter, over on Instagram, over on TikTok. We're taking over one platform at a time. I don't think this is the greatest main event, but it's not bad. It'd be a great co-main event. It's an okay main event. We have Ryan Superman Spann at plus 140 going up against Nikita Krylov at minus 165. Over under, again, 1.5. Over 1.5, minus 115, under 1.5, minus 115. Straight pick 'em. Let's start with Ryan Superman Spann, because last time we started with someone that I thought was fraudulent. We're going to do it again, because I don't think Ryan Superman Spann is that good. He's 21-7. He's absolutely jacked. You would think that he is a crazy striker. He's an okay striker. He hits extremely hard. But most of his wins are by sub, man. He has a really, really, really good guillotine. Um, the issue with Ryan Spann is he's a little chinny and he has no cardio. These are the important things. I'm telling you right now, this fight will not go 25 minutes. Ryan Spann can't physically go 25 minutes. I know I said that against Jordan, right? I didn't think he could get 15, but the way Zach Palaga fought, like that wasn't really a fight. He didn't do anything. He just sat there against the cage. So I mean, if you don't do anything, you can stand there for 15 minutes. I don't see Krylov fighting that way. So Ryan Spann, I highly doubt he can go 15 minutes. He's going to have to clip him. He's going to have to either clip him on the feet or he's going to have to get a guillotine. He has 50% takedown defense. That's not good, especially for someone fighting Krylov who loves to go for takedowns. And you have to watch the weigh-ins here. Ryan Spann is notorious for missing weight or using the box. He's used the box almost every single time I've ever seen him weigh in, and sometimes he still doesn't make it. So make sure you see how he looks at weigh-ins. That's usually a pretty clear indicator. He missed weight against Johnny Walker and knocked out. He missed weight against Anthony Smith, or he looked bad, one of the two. He got knocked out. He got clubbed in something basically. So you just got to watch how he is on the scale. It's a pretty telling sign. And it's not just the UFC. He got mauled by Trevin Giles. He lost a split, but again, you shouldn't be getting taken down by Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles now fights at welterweight. This is at like heavyweight, so that's concerning. And Carl Roberson knocked him out pretty early in the Contender Series to show more about his chin. So again, no chin, no cardio, not a good thing. No bueno. On the flip side, Krylov. Krylov is very good striking. He pressures you like crazy. He has great volume. He pushes a pace. He's fought the who's who in the light heavyweight division. He has good wrestling. He can just stand and bang. His jiu-jitsu's okay. The biggest issue with him is his fight IQ, man. This dude is allergic to. He cannot. He has to shoot a takedown. He can't. He literally physically can't help himself. When you fight Paul Craig, you stand up and you beat his ass. What did he do? He went out there, he dropped Paul Craig, and then he went down to the ground. Why would you ever go down to the ground with Paul Craig? That's all he wants to do. The man pulls guard. He wants you on the ground. Don't go down there. Magomed Ankalaev, you wanted to just brawl. Like, that's not the time to brawl. You got to get a takedown. Glover Teixeira, you lost a split to the champ. Glover Teixeira, that's not a bad look. Johnny Walker, he somehow went to decision and he took him down a lot. That was good. But he just kind of has one game plan. I mean, he goes out there, his striking's it's actually a little overrated as I did the fight tape. It's not that good. He just pressures and throws nonstop and he keeps going. And his cardio's not good or bad. He kind of has like that heavyweight, I'm gassed, but still throwing cardio. And it kind of gasses out his opponents to where then he'll get the takedown again and just kind of catch his breath while on top of them. We saw that in the Vulcan fight. We saw it in the Johnny Walker fight. Magomed, we almost saw it until Magomed decided to out wrestle him. He won the first round against Ankalaev. That's a good look. And honestly, when you look at his losses, Paul Craig, bad loss, but he was winning up until he did something stupid. Magomed could be champ soon. Glover Teixeira was champ. Jan Blachowicz was champ. Misha Serkinov, not terrible. But again, he got caught in a guillotine, and that's concerning. That Superman Spann has a right hook and a guillotine. That's all he has. OSP caught him in the Von Prue. Shit happens, whatever. And then we're going all the way back here. I mean, Adam here missing Jaco twice. He lost to him twice. Yeah. Oh boy. Arm triangle. Interesting. But at the end of the day, he beat Walt Harris. He has good wins on his record. He's fought the who's who, and all of his losses are basically to champions and title challengers. So, long-winded way of saying I think Krylov is the better fighter, but his ring IQ scares me. Spann, I could totally see knocking him out or catching a guillotine. I cannot stop seeing Spann's guillotine. God. I fully came in here expecting Krylov. I'm going to stick with Krylov because I don't. If he survives, Spann can't do Krylov's pace. Spann is the exact type of guy Krylov loves to fight because he can break him cardio wise, and I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. So the pick is going to be Krylov. The bet is going to be Krylov because the odds aren't bad at -165, and that's UFC Vegas 70, baby. We are on a roll. We want to keep it going. We want to keep making money. We're going to keep doing big things, baby. Let's get it.